Hello and welcome to Connected episode 221. It is made possible this week by our sponsors, Away, Pingdom, and Luna Display. I'm your host, Stephen Hackett, and I am joined by my two very handsome, very intelligent co-hosts. I have Mike Hurley. How are you?
Oh, hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And we have the king of the Mac Mini, the ruler of the dock, Mr. Federico Viticci.
Hi. I like these new titles that you gave me.
I wanted a third one, but I couldn't think fast enough for a third one.
Okay. Well.
The Admiral of Automator.
Okay. Admiral. I like that. That's a good word.
I like that a
English.
lot. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Admiral Viticci.
Okay. I can go with that. Mike, are you back on the show for real? Like you
Nah.
You didn't leave the show.
No, I'm just a guest.
You're not back. You're just a guest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just a guest this time.
Because on this program we talk about the Macintosh, and I don't know, you kind of feel out of place.
No, it's cool. I bought one. I bought a Macintosh today.
Oh, you bought a Macintosh computer today?
Yeah, I bought a Mac Mini.
Which did you? Oh,
yeah.
So not a Performa. Okay.
No, I wanted to be in the core club like you guys, so I bought a Mac Mini as well.
Okay, so now we can talk about the Mac Mini. Let's talk about the Mac Mini, Mike. What's your favorite feature of the Mac Mini?
It hasn't come yet. It's on the way. My favorite feature so far is how many boxes you have to tick to try and order one, even though you're not 100% sure what any of that stuff really honestly means. Like, do I want 32 gigabytes of RAM or 64? Like,
okay,
I don't know.
So to save us all some email, what did you order?
Oh, let me see. Who knows?
You want to find it and we'll come back to it in a second?
iPod Touch. Got one of those.
Okay.
I got a 3.2 gigahertz, 6-core, 8th generation Intel Core i7 Turbo Boost up to 4.6 gigahertz.
Ooh, boy, that's a big one.
That's a lot. That's definitely more complicated than A12X. It's just as a thing to remember. I got the 32 gigabyte 266 megahertz DDR4. I got one of those.
Good.
I got the Intel UHD graphics 630, which is way better than the 620. So I'm pleased.
And it's the only option on the Mac Mini.
It's good. It's good. I wrote to Tim and he made sure I got the right one. I got a 1 terabyte SSD storage, and I also got a 10 gigabit Ethernet paren N-base T Ethernet with support for 1 gigabyte, 2.5 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes, and 10 gigabyte Ethernet using the RJ-45 connector.
Oh, good. You don't want the RJ44. That's last year's.
I like the requirement to list 1 gigabyte, 2.5 gigabyte, 5 gigabyte, and 10 gigabyte. Like, I like that needs to. Is there any others? Like,
you didn't get 7 gigabyte.
Well, what if I need 7?
Also, it's gigabit, but that's fine.
Well, leave me alone. What if I need a 7 now? Why do I get 1 and 2.5 but not 7?
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's ridiculous. And I also got an accessory kit, which I don't know what that means. Like a hat? What is that?
What is an accessory kit?
I don't know.
You get a wristband.
Like a pin.
It just says
like,
accessory
like
kit. I don't know what that is. Like, what accessories does the Mac Mini come with?
Federico, you joke, but in my 20th anniversary Mac I bought a couple years ago, it came with all that stuff, and you got both a pen and a pencil in this little like leather sleeve, and you got a remote. And with the Mac Mini, it just means you get paperwork and a power cable. So congrats on the power cable, Mike.
Why do they call it an accessory kit? It's not an accessory.
I hope you'll be happy together.
But I mean, it's not like they would just call it stuff. So,
no, but like they don't. I don't think that they need to tell me I'm going to get a power cable. Like I
don't know. Modern Apple.
Modern Apple, man.
You want to be clear on that stuff.
30 pin. Yeah, so I got one of those. I started a note in Apple Notes today with called Mac Mini Server, and I've written down a couple of things that I might want to try. Like, why am I getting this? Right.
Okay.
So storage,
such as.
Storage,
yes.
Like it's all question marks right now. Like, do I want to store project files on it? I don't know. And then I got like Plex, and then the next bullet is how do I set that up? So that's a question mark. And there's Casey Liss. There he is. He somehow has found out, and I'm sure at this very moment has sent me a message. I put in just a link to last week's episode of this show, so I'll listen to all of that again and all of the insane things that Federico was doing with Apple Scripts. Homebridge, which is part of it, right? Like, so I can, I don't know. I don't even know what I would do with that.
Bridge your home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sponsor, but Luna Display. I got a USB-C Luna display that I'm going to use.
Good.
And then I started writing down like what are some actual tasks that I could use. So like for example,
Right.
I did an episode of Subnet a couple of weeks ago. I stood in for you. And I was thinking, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll edit this on my iPad, right? I'll record and edit this on my iPad because this is the thing that the kids do today. But then I was like, I do some pre-processing of audio files in Adobe Audition, and I don't know how to get those results in anything else. So I would have had to have pre-processed them on my Mac, and then by the time that I did that, I just decided to do it all on my Mac. But with a Mac Mini and something like the Luna display, I could just do all of that stuff on the Mac, right? Like I could record it on iOS, put it in Dropbox, process it in Audition, and then just edit it on my iPad.
So you're going to run this Mac Mini headless?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have I'm going to send you a link to this. I'm Googling now. You want
Tell me what I want.
basically a headless HDMI adapter, or the Mac Mini or Mac OS will basically keep the resolution super low, which is really
true.
dumb.
Okay.
And so you want this thing. It's $8 on Amazon Prime. I'm putting it in the chat room so you can see it and put it in the show notes. This comes via our friends at Mac Stadium. So they recommend this. It basically tricks your Mac into running at 1080, which make it a little bit easier on the Luna display as well. You should buy this and just plug it into the HDMI port.
It seems weird.
But, it is. It is what it is. But if you're going to use remote desktop access, this is a handy thing to have.
Okay. Let me see if we have it in the UK Amazon. Yep. Oh, it's still a lot more expensive, but what you going to do?
Yeah. What can you do? Can't do anything about that.
It's £20.
So there's that. Yeah. So that's your Mac Mini. Please let us know when it gets in. We're very excited for you.
It's like special. Do it like a special report. We'll do an episode immediately.
Yeah, we'll just do an immediate bonus episode.
Yep.
As you unbox it. Mike, while we're talking to you about hardware, I know you have spent some time with the iPhone XR. How is that going?
Yeah, it's good. I would say I haven't been spending extended time with it. Like I spent a bunch of time with it when I got it, and I play around with it every now and then. And I think, the XR, I mean, this isn't new to anybody really, but I think that it is a very, very solid phone. I don't know how actually popular this thing is. There are a lot of people that I think right now are trying to say that it's not popular. I think Apple's trying to say that it's their best selling, right? Like it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on about this thing right now. Aren't they giving they're doing some kind of crazy $300 off promotion if you bring in an old phone, right?
If you bring in a 7 or 7 Plus, I think.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that seem weird?
Yeah, it does. I think there's something to the story about the XR. There's something going on. Next time they announce their sales, unit sales, then we'll know. Oh.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore, do they?
But it's right there on the homepage, at the very top. Limited time iPhone XR from $449. But anyway, whatever the reason is, I think the XR is a great phone. I love the color of it, right? I got the coral one and I love it. And in my usage of it, everything that you think would be a downside, it turns out is mostly fine, right? The screen is incredible. The bezels, once you've used it for more than an hour, in my opinion, I don't notice that the bezels are thicker. I definitely notice that the phone overall is thicker. I can feel that, especially if you put a case on it, right? That makes it much bigger. But I think it is great, and the dual purpose of buying this one was so I could kind of just get to understand it. The second is it's going to my mum for Christmas, so she's going to be getting my Coral iPhone XR this Christmas with the clear case that finally Apple has given me the point that I wanted, and they have delivered to the world the clear case.
Are you buying one?
I will buy one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
because I stand by the fact that if you're gonna buy a phone that's in a color like a big bright color like this, you want to show it off. And again, I still say I wish they made a clear case for the XS because I have a gold phone that I love the color of, but I'm too scared I'm too much of a chicken to not have a case on it. So
nothing bad has ever happened from carrying a phone without a case.
Is that true?
Don't ask me about my last two phones. I
Yeah,
don't
how
wanna
is
talk
this
about
one
them.
doing? Have you dropped it? Have you broken it?
I've not dropped it. It definitely has some scratches on the screen.
Yeah.
I think from the little brass nubbin on my jeans, just like my iPhone 10 had, but it's fine
I'll
otherwise.
tell you, like a couple of days ago, my phone took a fall that would have destroyed it if I didn't have a case on it. Like screen down onto marble floor. Right from my
killed just
standing
about
height,
anything.
like that would have destroyed it. And if I wouldn't have had that case on
Yeah.
it, that phone would be dead now.
The Apple case looks exactly how you would expect it to look, right? It's clear
Yep.
plastic. There's a funny thing on at least right now on Apple's store online that they have the product imagery. There's two product red phones. Like they just, I don't know what happened there. Some sort of data entry issue. It seems like if you want a clear plastic case, there are much cheaper options. This thing is $40, but if you want a first party case, this is now out there for you.
It's really weird. I was looking at the homepage that Mike said. There's actually like a whole section that says limited time iPhone 10R. Like I've never seen Apple do this kind
You
of
see, it's so
discounts
strange
before.
to see,
It's
isn't
very
it?
weird. It looks like any e-commerce website on the internet.
Yeah.
It's not Apple at all. Like limited time. It's like an offer. Apple doesn't do offers.
Yeah, and there's like an asterisk by the number, and I know why it's there, right? But it's still kind of, it all just seems really strange, and it might be nothing, right? Like it might just be whatever, they're just doing it. It's like a holiday promotion, but it's still like just a strange thing. But I will tell you, right? Like if you have like an iPhone 7 or something, or maybe even an iPhone 8, getting one of these for $450, that is a great deal. Like that is a very, very good deal. So, but it's still strange to see Apple do a very, very good deal, right? Like it's just like a weird thing to see, especially when you look at like their unforgettable holiday event, which was just like back storeroom clean out. You saw that, right? Like their Thanksgiving stuff. It was like a bunch of old phones and iPads and old Macs. It was like really weird. Like there was like, oh, why don't you buy the 10.5-inch iPad? Or why don't you buy this iPhone 7? Like, here's our incredible holiday event. Like it was not a great holiday event. So it just seems strange for them to then do something like this, but probably to the benefit of many people, right? Like I can imagine there being more iPhone 10Rs under the Christmas tree this way.
You know, I wasn't supposed to say anything, but I guess it's past now, so I can. For that Black Friday Thanksgiving thing, when they had a bunch of older devices for sale, they actually came to me.
We need some
and said,
iBooks.
We need some iBooks, and if you have like a 3GS or two, that'd be great. I did not have a white iPhone 4, but no one did, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel I can now say that I'm proud to have been part of Apple's Black Friday specials.
Okay.
Shame I didn't see those. Those ones must have gone really quickly.
They did.
They even have it like on the main iPhone page, like apple.com/iPhone. Get up to $500 for your iPhone. Trade in your iPhone and get credit towards a new one. And get extra credit for select iPhone models. That's what they're doing right now. So it's even more than the regular give back. They're boosting it to.
It's strange.
Tis strange. Do you know what's not strange?
Our first sponsor?
Indeed. Let's talk about Away. They have the perfect gift for everyone on your holiday list this season. Away make smart premium suitcases, which means that your luggage will never have to cost more than your plane ticket. When you buy an Away suitcase, you will get included a battery. It's got some USB ports right there, so you will be able to charge your devices when you travel. In fact, you could charge your phone up to 5 times from a single charge of the included battery in Away's carry-ons, which you can very easily pop out of the carry-on and take with you wherever you go on your trip, so you'll always have that battery when you need it. Go to awaytravel.com/connected and you can browse their suitcase offerings. They all feature German polycarbonate, which is unrivaled in strength and impact resistance. They have a patent-pending compression system, which is great if you're an overpacker, 4 360-degree spinner wheels, TSA combination locks, and a removable washable laundry bag. This is what you'll find in Away suitcases. There are 5 sizes for you to choose from, and they have over 10 colors. They have 2 carry-on sizes. They have like 2 kind of big suitcase sizes, and they also have a kid's carry-on size as well. Away cut out the middleman so you can get first-class luggage at coach prices. Big fan of my Away suitcases. We have 3 of them in our household now, and I'm actually going to be replacing my big suitcase with an away case too as well, because I love all of the little features. I love the compression system. I'm a big fan of the laundry bag. Like that, it seems like such a simple thing, but when you get back from a trip, just being able to take all of the clothes from the laundry bag and just dump them straight into the hamper makes unpacking a lot faster, because you're not like sorting through everything, like what needs to be washed and what doesn't. Away believe in the quality of their products, which is why they offer a lifetime guarantee. If anything breaks, they will fix or replace it for life, and they have a 100-day trial with a no questions asked return policy, and Away do free shipping on any order within the lower 48 states of the US, but they do ship to many destinations worldwide. Because this season, everyone wants to get away, you should go to awaytravel.com/connected and use the code CONNECTED at checkout to get $20 off any of their suitcases. That's awaytravel.com/connected and the code CONNECTED for $20 off. Our thanks to Away for their continued support of this show and Relay FM. So MKBHD broke the internet a couple of days ago with a video called the blind smartphone camera test. So did you guys see this? He was putting up voting on Instagram and Twitter. Did you both participate?
Yep.
Yes.
Only some of them.
Okay.
I didn't keep up with the entire thing, but yeah.
So I was as well. So he took like 16 phones and took pictures of all of them, and then basically it allowed people to vote on Twitter and on Instagram for which photo looked the best, and then made a video about his findings, and it is absolutely nothing that you would ever expect it to be. It's wild. Like the winner ended up being the Huawei Mate 20?
No, the Mate 20 Pro.
Mate 20
maybe.
Pro, that's it. Having beat out the Xiaomi Poco phone. That was the final. It was the iPhone XS, the iPhone 10, and the Pixel 3 all got beat in their first round. The iPhone XS got beat by a BlackBerry. Like, it was bonkers. It was really, really surprising. And I think it led to some really interesting kind of conclusions about the way that people consume images on their phones. Because effectively, as Marquez says in his video, which you should watch, it's really nicely done, it's effectively what won was which image was the brightest, which had the most contrast. Or like that was all the winning factor really was, because of compression on images, and also just because you don't really, and I saw this as well, like people saying like you don't know what the subject actually looked like. So if it's just brighter, then great, that's just going to be the image that most people tend to gravitate towards.
Yeah, and even though people usually cannot separate like what is exposure, what is contrast, they know what they like. They have like, we as humans, we like our pictures to be in a certain way because they're just nicer to look at. And I think this was a fun project and really fascinating to see the results, because it really, there's the takeaway here is that when it comes to posting on social media, there are different factors at play on what makes a good picture, because there's of course compression involved, there's some image artifacts, but really when you're sharing with tons of people, a shareable photo, a nice shareable photo does not necessarily mean that it's a high fidelity photo that respects all of the photographic rules, if that makes sense. Like, nice pictures for Instagram and Twitter are not necessarily perfect, but people can still like them better than a super accurate photo taken on a 10S, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I think it's funny when you see something like this, because it's like, this wasn't what he was attempting to do. Like when he started this project, it was like, oh, great, let's see whether people like the Pixel or the iPhone 10 the most, right, in a blind test. But what it ended up being was these two phones that are mostly disregarded that were battling it out for the win. Like, it's such an interesting result. But as you say, like it shows a little bit about what people gravitate towards. It's just really I just find the whole thing really interesting. Like, I don't have my own personal like mind-blowing takeaway from it, but I think it just says something and I'm not 100% sure what that is, right? Like, what would it be like if I was looking at those images in full resolution? Would I change my mind? Honestly, I don't know if I would.
What I think is interesting is that if you recall what happened with Beautygate and the iPhone XS, there's a fascinating difference when changes to a photo to the camera are forced upon you by the manufacturer versus a photo that is not accurate but you took it. Like you made the decision to take that photo, because if you look at those photos that MKBHD posted, some of them are not accurate pictures. They're either overexposed or they're lacking details in the background. But it's not a bug. Like he took those photos, so. Normally, what I'm trying to say is that people apply things like beauty filters.
Or even if you look at, like I follow a bunch of like photographers, like professional photographers on Instagram, and they all process their photos in Visco, right? Like and add these like wild color filters and stuff to them to make them look more visually impressive.
So I think it's interesting that people are okay with these kinds of filters, like beauty filters or smoothing filters, when they decide to use them.
Yeah.
But if they're on by default, they get upset, and it's a beauty gate. I think it's fascinating, like a human behavior. It's very, very fascinating.
Yeah, like there's a reason that there are a million of these smoothing filters in Instagram and in Snapchat, right? Like in the face stuff, because people want to use them all the time. But if the camera's doing it for them, whether intended or not, now it's like how dare you? But exactly. Super interesting. And I guess we should all be using the Huawei Mate 20 Pro now.
Oh yeah, I switched already. Didn't I tell you guys? Mac Stories is no more.
Huawei Stories.
No, Mate Stories.
Mate Stories. Okay.
Yes, that's what I'm going for.
I love it.
It's sort of a also I've fired all of my employees and I'm just hiring British people because of the Mate fits better.
Interesting. That wasn't. Oh my god! I just got an ad for the Huawei Mate 20 Pro on Mac Rumors. I just opened up the next link, and I have an ad right there. It says, "Welcome to a higher intelligence."
Listening, man.
Yep, Chrome is listening to you.
Oh man, I need to unplug all of my devices now. See you later, guys. This is it for me.
Time to change your house.
This is really interesting because we live in a world where like most photos are shot and then shared on a smartphone, and they never escape past that, right? Like I would imagine that if he had done a video where he also voted on like prints of some sort, that the more traditional smartphones like the iPhone and the Pixel would do better there.
Or even if it was like he showed those images in a video as opposed to like on Twitter.
Non-compressed. Yeah. Non-compressed. But, I mean, think about the pictures like the three of us take. Where do we share them? Like Instagram. Exactly. Or Twitter, right? Like they're going to get compressed to Kingdom Come. And in that world, what his findings ended up being make a lot of sense. It's surprising initially, but he did a really good job explaining it, and I totally see why it ended up being the way that it was. In fact, as he was going through the examples, talking about them, I was voting against the phone in my own pocket. I was voting against the Pixel. It's like, this does look better in this context.
Like I remember like the images that I voted for, and they were all brighter. They all had more colors in, because that tends to be what I, like most humans, like. And it's just a funny thing.
I don't know if I said this on the show before, but I sort of have a confession to make. I don't always like how pictures from the iPhone XS look.
Same.
Oh, really?
I think older iPhones used to be punchier, used to produce... I don't know, everything just looks a bit flat to me with the XS, unless I have really, really good lighting, or I'm at the park and it's super sunny. I prefer most of the pictures that I took on the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 7 even. They were more contrasty, more, they had more punch than what I normally shoot on the iPhone XS. And I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I tried with Smart HDR enabled and disabled. it just, there's something that the software is doing. And I think Nilay Patel was also complaining about this a few months ago, and I'm starting to see it now, because whenever I look at pictures from the Pixel 3, for example, I'm like, yeah, that picture has contrast, has really good lighting, as you know, it packs a punch. It's got something, it's got that kick right in the image, that those colors and that contrast. And the iPhone XS, it always looks, I mean, it can take beautiful pictures, but it happens less frequently than it used to happen before. And I'm not trying to say that I'm going to switch to the Google Pixel and stuff like that, but it just, whatever Apple did with the software, I don't think I'm 100% happy with it, because it's in trying to cast detail on every single point of the photo, and this is especially true with Smart HDR, it makes everything a bit too flat and a bit too soft and a bit too plasticky, if that makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense. I agree with you. In fact, I have turned off Smart HDR on my XS Max. I don't like the way, especially the outdoor photos look.
I should try again with HDR off. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got it off, and it still does stuff, right? But it's dialed back some, and it looks more like the older iPhones. But even now, with the setting off, some of those outdoor photos like look too HDR-y for my, I think that's what you're seeing and what you don't like as well.
Yeah.
Was like, okay, like the sky should not be blue in this picture. And like, if you like that, that's fine. I don't like it. I want it to be more accurate. And so I feel the same way you do. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very random. There's not like a thing that I can say it always does this. But every once in a while, and actually every few days, I take a picture and I'm like, it's a bit flat. It's like the colors are muted and it doesn't have the kind of contrast that I remember when I took the picture. That said, I can take some beautiful pictures with the XS, especially when like I'm in direct sunlight and I'm at the park. There's tons of vivid colors, and in that situation, it takes some great shots. But it's something that I noticed, and especially when looking at the reviews for the Pixel 3 and looking at image comparisons, like when The Verge did the photo comparisons between the XS and the Pixel 3, I tend to prefer every single photo of the Pixel 3 version. It just looks better to me.
All right, so a bunch of stuff here. So I would say that I prefer the Google Pixel 95% of the time. At some point, we will talk about my Pixel 3. At some point, we will get to it.
Not today.
Not today.
Okay.
At some point, we need to get to it. And I even have like a comparison album that I put together. We will get to this at some point. But I will say that I disagree with both of you personally about the iPhone's camera. I would say that I have not noticed like how you two have described like the flat nature of images. Like I have not seen that, and like I'm looking at images that I've taken over the last week, and I don't really look at any of them and be like, oh, that doesn't look right. But the thing is, with Smart HDR, I take more images now where I go, oh wow, I love that. So for whatever reason, my tastes right align with what Smart HDR is doing. Like I like the big bold blue skies and all that, like I like all of that stuff. It looks pleasing to me. So and I'm not in any way saying that I think like you're wrong, but because it's all a personal taste thing. But I would just say that for me personally, I much prefer the Smart HDR stuff, but always prefer the Pixel 3 pretty much as to what it can do. So
my guess is Federico and I are in the minority. Actually,
I don't know. It's difficult to tell, right? Like how are we? How would we even know that? But I think that this is only a thing that you can know after a while, and I think that I remain really happy with the new camera stuff. I'm also using portrait mode more and more.
That I am as well. Yeah,
it's getting so much better, especially for like images shared on Instagram, for example. Like if I am ever I don't take a lot of selfies, right? But like if I ever do now, I always take at least one portrait mode image as well. Because, again, it's like if you're sharing it on Instagram or whatever, like it ends up looking pretty good for Instagram, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but the Pixel's still better at that as well.
All right, we'll talk about it, Mike. Don't worry. I will not forget.
No, because I want to. We just haven't gotten to it, but we will.
We have some breaking news.
Oh dear!
Can someone do a breaking news sound effect?
Is that the sound of breaking news?
Yep.
That's a terrible
All right.
sound.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
That sounds like news is broken.
Breaking news. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Isn't that when it happens?
iOS landmark release. A release we will tell our children about. iOS 12.1.1 is out. It does some things, including notification preview now uses haptic touch on the iPhone XR. They've slowly been adding haptics to things as they go. Better dual SIM and eSIM support. Live photo capture during one-to-one FaceTime calls. And perhaps the biggest thing, you can now flip between the rear and front-facing camera during a FaceTime call with one tap, like you used to be able to do. And they put it behind a menu, which was super dumb.
A couple of days ago,
now they have fixed that.
I had to listen to a friend explain to a family member how to do it, and it said, "You will hang up the call, but that's okay." And it was like, yes,
Oh, no.
you will hang up the call, right? Because when you go into that menu, you have to get rid of the menu. And the only way to get rid of the menu that seems logical is the big red X button. But no, that hangs up the call.
very
So
bad.
I'm very pleased that they have added this feature because I'm sure that it has been driving people berserk, right? Like we're trying to... Because I would assume that probably the biggest use of FaceTime is calls between family members of varying ages and locations. And any change to the UI in an application like that is going to ruin everything for everyone, right? Like if you make a big change, like, oh, now this button that you use is hidden, everyone's going to get that wrong. No one's going to know what they're doing, right? So I'm pleased that they put this back in again because it was much needed.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed it, but so that's all good news. I have been burned by this on a FaceTime call with my family.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly what you said happened. One of my kids tried swapping it around. They just hung up on me.
I also have, sorry guys, some breaking news.
Whoa.
Shortcuts 2.1.2 is out on the App Store.
Okay.
There's a whole list of bug fixes here.
Oh, yeah.
Some of which may have been, some of those bugs were caused by yours truly, but I will not go into detail here. I'm not saying that I somehow broke shortcuts, but
But
it's a story for another time.
It has been prophesized that one may.
It has been brought to my attention that some of my shortcuts were causing issues. Performance improvements all around the app, so the widget will no longer crash if you have one of my base 64 shortcuts.
That's
in
good.
in the widget. iCloud sync improvements. Let's see. I'm looking at release notes.
I have a complaint.
Okay.
About the release notes. In the App Store, I'm just going to read what the App Store says. Bullet point, bug fixes and improvements. No period. Return. Learn more and see the full list of changes at blah, blah, blah. support.apple.com/HT209087. Apple, that is not a link. I cannot click this and open a browser.
That's true.
Put the notes in the App Store. What are you doing, Shortcuts team? Be better than this.
Listen to the old man. He's got a point.
Either my feeling is either have it be a clickable link, put them in there, or don't do it.
We will put the link in the show notes because we're better than the Shortcuts team at explaining things.
I think it's ironic that the first new feature at the top of the release notes is added a new post to Tumblr action.
Has to be clean content, everyone. Clean content.
This,
Tumblr's dying now, right? Like, this is going to kill Tumblr. The fact that there will be no more butts on Tumblr, right? Like, that's the end of it, right? It's got to be, right? Like, I feel like it can't be good for Tumblr.
I don't follow adult content creators on Tumblr, but I am familiar with the idea that that content is popular on Tumblr, and most people use it for that. So yes, I'm pretty sure that Tumblr is owned by What's the name?
Isn't it Alibaba? Who owns Yahoo now?
No. Oath is Verizon,
Who
right?
owns Tumblr?
But doesn't
Isn't
Yahoo
Oath-
own Tumblr?
No. Let's look at Wikipedia.
It's complicated, Mike. Anyway,
Relationship status. It's complicated.
it's complicated. More bug fixes while Steven looks it up. Let's see. For example,
Yeah, it's owned by Oath. Yeah, Oath.
and Oath is Verizon. Right?
As part of Verizon. It serves as the umbrella company to its digital content subdivisions, including AOL, Yahoo with an exclamation point, Verizon's other businesses.
Oh, okay. So, as Zach says in the chat room, Verizon owns Oath. Oath owns Yahoo. Yahoo owns Tumblr. Right?
Yes.
It's like how it goes through the little chain of command there.
This is a corporate Russian doll. It's what it is.
A matryoshka. Matryoshka?
Matryoshka, I think.
Matryoshka. That's the Russian nesting dolls.
Steven, what's next on our list here? So 12.1.1.
Yep, that's out. Shortcuts is out.
Dual SIM support, I will test. I actually... well, not dual SIM, like eSIM, not a physical SIM, physical dual SIM. If you want to get that phone, you got to go to Hong Kong, and I don't want to go to Hong Kong.
It's not worth it, really.
It's not really worth it, I think. But I will try again a test that I did a few weeks ago, and we wanted to talk about it, but then we delayed the topic a bunch of times. eSIM support on iOS 12. I want to try at least 2 apps. I only tried TruePhone the first time, and I think the other company, what's the name, GigSky, maybe, they have an app update now that allows you to buy eSIM plans. So I will try it again with 12.1.1, which is already, I think I installed the beta on my phone last week to fix my iCloud issues. That didn't work, but I will update to the public release and try the eSIM again, and I will report back.
As follow-up to last week, are your iCloud issues resolved yet?
No.
Oh,
no,
whoa,
they are
really?
not. And yeah, my for example, right now, reminders on my phone says that 1 reminder is due today, and reminders on the Mac says that 3 reminders are due today. Nobody replied to my radar, and I don't know what's going on. I have a feeling that it's something on my Wi-Fi network at this point. Because if Apple can figure it out, and I did multiple resets and installing a new version of iOS, logging in and out of iCloud, I noticed something yesterday that reminders were not updating on my phone, but when I turned off the Wi-Fi, they did, and I have a feeling that somewhere in my local network, either my setup or my ISP are doing something to iCloud sync. This is just a hunch. I'm not convinced because I only noticed this behavior once. But I need to look into it. And I know that Apple has a support page where they suggest which ports on your router that you need to open for that Apple software uses. So I will check that out, and I will see what I have to do, but it's kind of weird because I've never had these kinds of issues before, and I haven't changed ISP or my setup in years. So if it's a network problem, that's a new thing because it never happened before.
Now that would be really weird.
Yeah, I know. And it's super weird that at this point, everything else works. Like messages, they sync fine. Photos, they sync fine. Backups are working. Everything else iCloud related is working. My, what's it called? The text replacements, they are back and fully functioning. Like everything else is fine. Just reminders, which is the app that I use the most, is not working. It's not syncing my reminders across devices. I don't know what else I need to do. Again, I don't want to switch task managers again. So
I would say, man, I know, I understand that like reminders is working for you and that kind of stuff. But like after a situation like this, I wouldn't stick with it. I wouldn't. I would have to move, right? Like for me, with the way that I use my to-do system, if I am not confident that everything I put into it is being recorded properly, then it is useless.
Same.
Like, and this is not a criticism on you, like, because everybody works differently. But I just say, like, I'm surprised if you want to stick with it if this doesn't get resolved any quicker than it currently is.
The weird thing is that I don't know how to best explain this. So right now my reminders are not synchronized between my iPhone and my Mac, but at some point today they will be.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
At some point I will make a change either on my iPad or my phone again, and it will trigger sync. So last week, I told Steven, like, I'm completing the same reminders twice, or I'm moving them twice. Now I just need to wait a bit longer, because at some point that is out of my control, they will be synchronized.
So it does sync, but
eventually.
Very slowly.
Soon, but not yet, right?
Yes.
The rest of us, our iCloud accounts are on servers. Federico's, it's like a status board, and there's some interns at Apple. And it's like, oh, he marked off this list, and you have to like run over there and check it off over here. There's a human being in the middle of your iCloud account.
There's like a Trello board somewhere that is just all of your reminders, and then moving them around for you.
Yeah. It's slow because they went to lunch. Like, oh no, he did stuff when we were gone.
Last week after the show, I realized, well, maybe the problem is that I have too many completed reminders in my completed list. And I looked, and there were like 950 reminders. So I was like, okay, so maybe that's too many. So I put together a shortcut on iOS to delete the completed reminders, and it failed after deleting about 400. So I needed to go to my Mac and steal an Apple script from Dr. Drang to delete the remaining 540-something reminders, but that also didn't fix the problem. So now I don't have my complete reminders anymore, and the problem is still there. And it's super weird because eventually it works. And like right now, if I add a new reminder on my phone, it will show up on my Mac instantly. But some of the reminders that I complete or that I reschedule to another date, they will not sync for a few hours. It's like, no, man, we don't want to sync. We just chill.
Can't fathom how it is like selectively syncing. It doesn't make sense to me.
I have no idea.
What is going on? It's like, oh yeah, didn't you know? Like we keep it on two different servers. All of the entered tasks go over here, and all of the completed tasks go over here.
And I double checked, right? I was like, maybe at some point in the past, I was testing some weird automation, and I created a reminder that has like a base 64 string as an attachment. But no, I didn't do that. Of all the things I've base 64'd in the past few months, reminders are not one of them. And all my reminders are pretty basic, like text Mike or respond to John, like stuff like that. I don't have these complex structures of projects, right? I got like 10 lists, and that's it. And 2 of them are shared with Sylvia. Like it's a very basic setup.
It's so basic it doesn't even sync. That's how basic it is.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I really hope that this gets fixed for you, because I would be losing my mind. I know you've had some real dark days during all of this, and I would be just losing it.
I feel like I'm in a better place now. I've accepted my fate of reminders are not going to work well right now. I want to remain optimistic that somebody at Apple is listening to this program and they will fix my problems. But
you know what concerns me? It hasn't been fixed yet.
Yeah, that sounds concerning.
Because
and
all right,
usually
so we need
get
to
back to you.
Yeah, we need to just we have to lift the curtain a minute. History has shown that if any of us have these big issues and talk about it enough, like you tweet about it, you talk about it on a show or two, usually someone gets in contact with you and they're like, all right, let's see if we can fix this for you. And there is definite benefit to this, right? Because we are power users. We use things maybe more than the average person. And if someone can work out how to fix this, it might be a bug that they can fix for everyone, that kind of thing. There is definite benefit to it. But it's also one of the perks of having a popular podcast, right? No one's done anything yet, right? Like, you're still having this problem. That is concerning to me.
Yeah. And also, I think I mentioned last week, just as an extended follow-up, that I was having trouble installing updates from the App Store.
Yep.
And buying in-app purchases. That issue is fixed, but I needed to get in touch separately with iTunes Store support. Because apparently my account, my Apple ID, was getting locked for security reasons for just during normal usage. This is something that the iTunes Store senior advisor I was put in touch with said that it may happen that during normal usage, your account goes through a security screening and gets locked. And so you can no longer update certain apps or buy in-app purchases. Again, super weird. I could buy paid upfront apps. I could not buy in-app purchases or install some updates. Got in touch with iTunes support. They fixed it. The issue happened again 2 days later. Got in touch again. They fixed it, and now we're at today. So the lady was very nice. She said that they did something to my account to make sure that it doesn't happen again, but that it may also happen again. So that's kind of confusing. But yeah, it's not been a good couple of weeks in terms of teaching Apple software. I gotta tell you, bunch of weird problems.
It's weird to me because why? Like, something bad's going on for you. Like, I can't assume that those two things are not related in some way.
They've got to be.
I don't know. It looks like they're not. It looks like there are two separate problems.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
Do you have your time set automatically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't do those things with the date and stuff like that.
Maybe it's, I know you don't use auto brightness. Maybe that's the problem.
I do, actually.
Do you use it now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's good news.
Been using it for like a year. I got tired of managing, adjusting
the
brightness
micromanaging of screen brightness is just not something I want in my life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I stopped doing that.
Good.
Am I misremembering, but didn't you move to a new iCloud account like 4 years ago? Like, I feel like we've talked about this before, and you like set up a new iCloud account and just moved everything. It was a long time ago. Maybe it's time to do that again.
I have literally zero memory of this. I have no memory of this. This feels like it's new information to me completely.
So I'm one of those people that has two separate accounts on an iOS device. So I have my iCloud account that I use for everything, except
and your purchases account.
The iTunes.
Yeah,
iTunes and App Store. Yeah,
yeah. Adina has this too, and it's because of like she set up a Romanian account originally, right? And that's where all her purchases were because you couldn't use a Romanian card on a British account, that kind of thing. She ended up moving it all because, like most regular people, doesn't buy a ton of apps. So like it wasn't like a huge financial investment for her to switch over. It was just a pain, right? Like to download all of the apps again because you end up with that thing where it's like, oh, hey, you have to switch account to update this application. And yeah, but okay. Well, I look forward to the long-term follow-up of Federico's iCloud issues.
Maybe the third iCloud account is the charm.
No, I don't want to.
Yeah. Have you thought about like just switching to Android?
I'm not one of those people.
Okay. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Pingdom. Pingdom are awesome because they help keep your sites and the sites you love online. They monitor your website so you don't have to and will give you real-time feedback so you know exactly what's going on at all times. Things break every single day on the internet. In fact, Pingdom detect more than 400,000 website outages every single day, and this is just on the sites that they're already monitoring. It doesn't matter if you're a startup or a Fortune 500 company, you need alerts about critical website issues. Pingdom will let you customize how you're alerted depending on the severity severity of an outage. Plus, they'll track and analyze your website's load time and give you a report so you can see what's going on, and you can also see exactly what it is that's affecting any user experience issues on your site. If you have a website of any size, you need Pingdom. They have a no-fuss approach to get started. You just give them the URL that you want to monitor, and they'll take care of the rest. Go to pingdom.com/relayfm right now for a 14-day free trial with no credit card required. Then when you sign up, use the code CONNECTED at checkout to get a wonderful 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom for their support of this show and Relay FM.
On Connected, we like to check back in with stuff we have been using for a while, and Shortcuts has been out now.
Sorry, I thought I would demo a new segment jingle for you there.
The check back in.
You did the sound effect as you were saying that. That was incredible. It's like there's two mics.
You're like a ventriloquist.
Yeah, no. I hired someone that I have just standing here, ready to make the sound effect whenever I need it.
Oh, so somebody's looking at you while you do the show.
Yeah, Sound Effect Sammy is their name.
Sound Effect Sammy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not creepy at all.
Mm-hmm.
So this week, in whatever this segment is called, we're talking about Shortcuts.
How do you not know what it's called? I just played the jingle.
It's called the check back in. Come on.
The check back in. So we're checking back in on Shortcuts. And Federico, you wrote a lot of things in the doc, so why don't you go first?
There are not a lot of things. You've seen my reviews, but yes. So I wanted to. I asked you guys this question last night. Why don't we check back in on how we? Yes, on how. Thank you, Sammy. On how we are using the Shortcuts app and the Siri shortcuts for apps on iOS 12. And I want to talk about the Shortcuts app first. I've been impressed so far with the work of the Shortcuts team in adding new actions, especially with the 12.1 release that added the weather actions and the clock and measurement actions, but also the sharing improvements for iCloud. Those actually work for me, and the bug fixes, the performance improvements, like all the general maintenance of Shortcuts. I was afraid. Coming into iOS 12 and Shortcuts 2.0, that it was gonna stay untouched for months, and that has not happened so far. The team is still listening to feedback, and they still keep the test flight beta going. So I don't know if at this point, with the latest release that we just mentioned, they got rid of a lot of bugs that were affecting the app. Now, going into the new year, will we see any major Shortcuts features before WWDC? I don't know. I'm not sure. Mostly because I think most teams at Apple, institutionally, they tend to save big features for WWDC because it's their thing, right? It's their conference. It's where the new software happens. So will Shortcuts get stuff like folders or auto triggers before WWDC? I don't know. Will it get new actions and some new features? Maybe. That said, I wanted to go over with you two our usage of the Shortcuts app before we talk about Siri shortcuts for apps. And personally, I'm still using Shortcuts a lot. It's probably my most used app, except for maybe my text editor where I write. There's new ways that I'm using Shortcuts and old ways that I'm using it for. New ways include HomeKit controls. So the new HomeKit integration, the ability to run scenes. I'm using that a lot. I put together a lot of shortcuts that trigger specific scenes or trigger things together, like multiple scenes in a row. Or, for example, commands on the Mac Mini, as I talked about with Steven last week, in addition to HomeKit scenes. And I'm using these shortcuts as widgets and also as icons on the home screen for easy access. And there are also old ways that I'm using shortcuts like a more powerful version of workflow, because that's what it is. Like my shortcuts to add device frames to screenshots, or the shortcuts that I have for accessing reminders when they are synchronized on my phone. Shortcuts for Mac Mini automation, shortcuts for AppleScript, for example. Now I can change the volume of my HomePods from Shortcuts and Siri, and I find myself using the Siri integration a lot. So the ability to run a custom shortcut inside Siri, that I'm using quite frequently, especially for shortcuts that do something in the background or produce something without user interaction in Siri, because that's not supported yet anyway. So overall, I would say that I'm using the new actions like measurement, for example, that I'm using a lot. I'm happy with the fixes, especially in the latest release that has been in beta for a few weeks at this point. The new system integrations like HomeKit, they're really convenient. But overall, I mean, I'm super happy about shortcuts. I'm just not concerned, but curious to see what happens before WWDC. If now that they have fixed all of the major bugs, will they disappear for 6 months? Or we'll still see some stuff from the shortcuts team? I don't know.
So for me, I would say I use shortcuts as much as I use workflows, right? Like I use them every day, a couple of times a day, but not as much as you would use, not even close, right? But the difference for me now, compared from shortcuts to workflow, is if I want to make something, I can do it more often than not, which wasn't the way with workflow. Because like I have an idea about something I want to do, and either A, it's a system feature which is now supported, or B, third-party appers put it in for adoption by the Shortcuts app, right? So I'm finding myself being able to build shortcuts on my own more easily than I could workflows. And with every new feature that they keep coming up with, I use it more and more. Like, it's a slow building thing for me, and I expect it to continue. You know, like when I saw shortcuts, I was like, well, this is going to change everything for me. And I still believe it will, but I now think it will be on a slower time frame than I initially expected. Like, I think it needs all of the things that you want, right? And being able to do more things in the background, being able to do things on times will allow me to build some more interesting stuff than what I can currently build. You know, because I'm still limited to what I will want to access or trigger at any specific point. But my ability to be able to create things on my own has increased. And I think that is probably the most important thing to do first, right? Is like give people the tools to be able to do this stuff and make it easier for them to do it. And then like further continue how hooked into the system it is.
I think that's about where I am too. It hasn't radically increased my usage of it, but what I can do with it seems easier. Now, one thing I am doing and using quite a bit are the Siri shortcuts in apps. So things like Overcast to skip a chapter or to go back, or in Carrot Weather, it has a bunch of different ones now.
Yeah.
And those I really like, just be able to just talk to my phone and get something, or an Overcast if I'm riding my bike, be able to just say, hey, skip this chapter, go back, whatever. That's just really nice. I still think the way Apple and third-party developers surface some of that is a little confusing. And if you go to like the settings screen, just downright overwhelming. Like, these are all the last 35 things you could do. I wish some of that was clearer for average users, but I'm liking that stuff a lot, just to not necessarily build a shortcut itself, but to just surface little bits of apps from anywhere is pretty handy.
Yeah, there is that super weird thing where like an application is like, now with Siri shortcuts, and like you would have just where do they exist? Like, they're not anywhere, right? You know the app has them somewhere, but like, where is it?
Yeah. I wish there was a sort of a universal place to look at all that stuff, like a directory Apple could keep in settings.
Yep.
So like, these are all the apps you have installed that have Siri shortcut support. These are all the shortcuts that they present to the system.
Yep.
I think that sort of like index or dictionary somewhere would be really nice.
Because you have that thing in settings, right, where like it can show them, but they don't all work though, right? So like, am I right with that, Federico? Like, it is, the developer still has to say show them all in settings. Like, it doesn't automatically work that way.
Yeah, it's weird because there are three layers to this. Like, there's the recent shortcuts, the relevant shortcuts, and all shortcuts. And those are like three separate presentation modes that you can access. I think the easiest way is probably that most people tend to forget that it's possible. you need to open settings and scroll to the list of apps, like in the main screen toward the bottom. And each app has a shortcut section where you can view all of the shortcuts that they support, not just the recent ones. Because if you go to settings, Siri and search shortcuts, you will only see the recently donated ones. Whereas if you go to the app list and you open an individual app, you will see all of the shortcuts that the app supports. I think that's the way it works. But yeah, it's confusing, and I wish that, to your point, Steven, I wish that there was a way like to have like grouping by app or new sorting options. I think the current separation of recently used or recently donated and relevant to this moment doesn't really scale well when you have like 100 apps installed. And also,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys. Have you ever seen a Siri shortcut on your lock screen?
Never.
Me
I don't
neither.
think so.
Never.
Me neither.
Never.
Yeah.
Never seen one.
This is one of the features that was hyped at WWDC, and it definitely did work for me at some point this summer because I took screenshots. I talked about it in the review, but then after the final version of iOS shipped, I never got a shortcut recommendation on the lock screen. The lock screen.
I get
And I
them.
checked-
I get them in Spotlight, right? Like, and sometimes
Yes,
they
I
are
do.
actually
I
what
do.
I want, which I'm always impressed with, right? When it is actually something I would want, like a URL in Safari. It's like, oh, you want to go
Yeah.
to this page? I'm like, yeah, I do. You're right. But like, I've never ever seen one on the lock screen.
Yeah. And some Apple people will tell you, oh, it's because you know the system hasn't met the suggestion threshold to push up a shortcut on the lock screen. I don't believe that because I've been using iOS 12 since June, but let's say just the final version. It's been 3 months. I think you have enough data points to know what I do on my phone, and I'm surprised that I still haven't seen a shortcut on the lock screen. Especially because those are like those shortcuts, those images, they are all over the marketing material for shortcuts in iOS 12. Like getting shortcut recommendations on the lock screen. Those screenshots and photos are everywhere on Apple's website. So I don't know, never worked for me. What about are there like specific features of the Shortcuts app that you feel like you would need as soon as possible, not like in June, in 6 months? Like, is there a specific thing that's preventing you from being as efficient as you would like to be with shortcuts?
I don't think so. I think what I really want is like it's the third party stuff, right? Like I want more.
What do you mean?
I want like every app that I use to be able to donate more things better. So for example, my email app Spark has terrible shortcut support. Like it's so bad, right? When like what I want to see is stuff like what is my in my inbox right now? Like what emails have I received today? Like I would use that quite a lot, but they don't have anything like that, So for me, I think a lot of what has prevented me from using it more is that a lot of the applications that I use don't. So like I had this idea in my brain, right, of the things I would be able to build. But what has come to fruition is not what I was looking for. Like, there's a bunch of super exciting things and interesting things that I can do, but a lot of the third-party stuff that I'm doing is like 1 or 2 actions. Like, I use the Overcast one to resume my queue multiple times a day because it works so well, because it works better than anything else, right? Because I could have been listening to music, so I can't press play in Control Center, but I can always get it to work with the shortcut. I just say like, oh, hi, telephone, resume Overcast, done, and it just works, right? So stuff like that, fantastic. But like, how everybody wanted to build a morning routine?
Yeah.
Like, so many things that I want to do in that, I can't do. Like, for example, if I want to do something like that, I want everything read out to me, right? But like, it won't read to me my calendar appointments.
Yeah.
Right? I have to look at my phone for that. Well, it's like, you know what I mean? I feel like it's what it feels like is version 1, right? Which it kind of is version 1. Like, I know workflow existed, but what shortcuts can do compared to what workflow can do, it's like a completely different thing, right? Like, all of the system stuff that it can do, being able to work so tightly with Siri, this is all version 1 stuff. And I'm hoping that will improve, and I'm also hoping that Apple shows the significant changes to it over the next few years to encourage developers to continue working on it. Because my concern is it will be like iPad apps, right? Everyone did them, and then Apple stopped working on it, and then nobody made anything more than like Flight Control HD, right? Like, and then it took like 6 years.
Very specific reference.
But it was just like everything was something HD, right? You know, that was how all of the apps began. Everyone was super excited. There was tons of them, and then there was just nothing, right? For like 5 years until it started up again. And I would feel that, like, as great as Shortcuts is, if it doesn't get continued support, it will not get its resurgence, right? It will not get a resurgence like the iPad did because Apple isn't selling Shortcuts hardware to anybody. So I just hope, look, everything I know, everything I believe about the people behind this would suggest to me, and the history that we have seen since September would suggest to me, as you were saying, that this is still being very actively worked on. Like, a lot of the stuff that they have pushed out as bug fixes could just come out in September again, right? Because they have actually been adding features. So, you know, and also I know that things tend to come out with iOS releases, but not always, right? There's been some updates that have not been part of iOS releases. Like, they come out at the same time is what I'm saying. Am I right in that? Or have they always come out when some kind of point updates come out?
You mean about apps?
Well, the Shortcuts app, does it always get updated when there is a new version of iOS, or has it ever been updated without there being a new version of iOS to go along with it?
I think I got updates without an
yeah,
iOS
I think so
update.
too. I mean, it does seem like it's frequently at the same time for reasons that I'm not 100% sure. But it does feel like that there is also some bug fixes that come out in the interim as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if there's like I have a stumbling block, like a specific stumbling block. I just think that maybe my initial excitement was thinking about like a future world, right? Like, it's not the one that we have right now, but there is still more than ample ability for it to get to where I would personally want it to end up being.
Yeah. And there are features like that we mention often, like having folders or, you know, having user interaction in Siri, or even having like a native framework for apps so that you don't have to use like X callback and that type of stuff anymore. But really, there are some really big features and native functionalities that I think need to happen at some point if they, you know, to expand the reach of Shortcuts beyond people who were already familiar with workflow. Stuff like having these automatic triggers to run a shortcut when it's a specific time of the day or a location, or an alarm is triggered in calendar. So those kinds of triggers.
So
and
you
also,
remember
like,
we were talking about like an actions focused home screen, right? We were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, right? And because you built your incredible icon launching thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I spent some time playing around with it, and I found myself being frustrated. So like I set up a couple of like actions as if like one was like a new in Todoist and one was like what's going on today, right? So it would show me my calendar and show me my Todoist, like what's happening today in Todoist. But every time I press them, like the Shortcuts app would open, and then it would fire something else, and it's just like, this is clunky. Like, I don't like it. It's not what I want. Like, what I want is just to tap it and just see the UI that Todoist built for this that shows in Siri, right? Like, or it takes me right to where I want it to be. Like, I don't want it to open Shortcuts and run the shortcut like that. I had this like grand idea of like, oh, what if I rebuilt my entire iPhone around actions, and then was turned off by the fact that it was just, I know I would get really frustrated with the clunkiness over time. So like what I really want, the biggest things that I want from Shortcuts now is to not have to see the Shortcuts app except for when I'm building shortcuts. right? So like
that's a good point.
the system should suggest them to me better. I should be able to add them to my home screen, and like all of this stuff. Like I want to be, they should be able to run on timers. They should be able to, do all kinds of wonderful things without me needing to see the shortcuts app every time. Like to me, the shortcuts app is the building tool. That's pretty much all I want it to be.
It's like if every time you wanted to get somewhere, you will need to look at the engine of your car working. No,
It's just like, if I go to the store, okay, yep, the carburetors are firing. Here we go.
Exactly. And like I could see like a home screen where you can add a shortcut. And by the way, Apple should totally get rid of the system that I'm exploiting with my shortcut to save web clip icons to the home screen. That's
I'm going to say that they probably will now that you've done what you've done, is my feeling. You've exposed the engine.
But like I could see, like for example, you add shortcuts to your home screen, and you have a shortcut that presents you with an image, and so you tap a shortcut and you see like a quick look come up with a photo, like a specific photo or a specific document, without having to see shortcuts launching and running step 1, step 2, and all those actions. Or like maybe you have a custom shortcut that puts together a bunch of data from different places, like a morning routine, for example, and you add it to the home screen and you tap it and you see just the result of that shortcut, not all of the steps. Like that would be amazing. That's a very good point of like, I don't need to see the building blocks every time. I just want to see the result. And because right now, I mean, we basically have a different version of what was in workflow. So this workaround of adding web apps to the home screen, that's what it is. There should be a native solution to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I find myself like about 90, I would say about 75% of the shortcuts that I run are being triggered from the widget. Because when you tap something in the widget, a lot of it can run without you having to look at it. So like I have some workflows, shortcuts I should say, sorry, that if I run from any place other than in the widget, I have to watch it happen. But in the widget, I don't have to watch it happen. Like it just does its thing for me. And that is how I wished it was in more places. So, but yeah, I mean, they're again, like it's as I say every time, if you work on iOS, you need this app, and you need it more than you think you need it. Like it bridges so many important gaps, but there's still room to grow.
Can I say something quick for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are familiar with all these websites that have popped up, like Routine Hub, for example. These sort of third-party websites that aggregate shortcuts made by other people. And I've seen this trend, especially on the shortcut subreddit, of adding a lot of custom actions to a shortcut that you share with people to, for example, to support versioning and auto updates and like contacting a server to download the latest version of a shortcut, like adding all of these like dependencies essentially to a shortcut just to make sure that it works with these websites and that it supports auto updates and stuff like that. And while I appreciate for example, I don't want to call out the folks at Routine Hub specifically. They're doing an excellent job aggregating shortcuts. But personally, I don't like, and that's the reason why I don't use it. People have been asking, like, why don't you put this code in your shortcuts? I don't like the idea of making a shortcut for people and sharing the link, and and you're not able to understand what the shortcut does, because before you get to the actual shortcut, you see 20 actions that are meant to like create a folder in your iCloud Drive to save a configuration file, to save preferences. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that to my readers. I don't want to do that to everybody who follows me on Twitter. And also, I've seen many times some questionable choices in terms of like pinging a remote server to download configuration files. So my advice would be, if you share a shortcut with a lot of people, don't add this custom code. Wait for Apple to ship a native features. Yes, I know that it sucks that shortcuts do not support auto updates. You can share them on these websites without having to add any custom code. But also be mindful whenever you come across these long shortcuts. Be mindful of the remote calls that they are making to servers that are not your own. These shortcuts, they cannot steal your data or anything like that.
Why would a shortcut need to do this?
For example, if you host a JSON file for configuration of the shortcut remotely, every time the shortcut runs, it could download the latest content of the JSON file from your server.
Okay, but like, what do you need that for, though? Like, what kind of shortcuts?
For example, to see how certain preferences are set on the user's device for that specific shortcut. I've seen shortcuts, for example, that need to talk to a server before continuing because they need to make sure that you have the latest version installed, or that they need to check if you install the shortcut correctly, for example. And I've seen shortcuts that like create 5 folders in iCloud Drive and store like dozens of text files just for configuration purposes, just to support auto update and auto checking every time the shortcut runs.
Right.
I understand why people do this. I don't like it, and I don't like the idea of every time the shortcut runs, it talks to a server that is not specifically mentioned in the description of the shortcut or in the comments of the shortcut. And for example, you may think that you're just, using a shortcut, that you pick a photo and you add, a frame to the photo, but then you end up in a situation where that photo is also uploaded to a server. Like, be mindful of the shortcuts that you download and always look at them. And that is why I always leave comments and why I always explain the shortcuts that I make, because I want to, make sure that people understand what they're using on their devices.
That's super weird.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
I've never even heard of this. Like, and again, like, yeah. I'm still not even sure I know why it needs to be done.
Most people are trying to compensate for the fact that when you share a shortcut, that's it. That's the version that you shared. If you make a change to the shortcut that you share with people, then you gotta go to those people and say, "Oh, I have a new version. You should remove the first one and install this new one because I fixed something," right? I have a website to do this. I have a Twitter account with a bunch of followers. Most people on Reddit, they don't want to do this because they don't have a website or don't have an audience.
Right,
and so they embed this code in the shortcut that every time it runs, it checks if there's a new version, which means you're hosting this code somewhere else because it needs to check. I really don't like it. I understand why people do it, but please find some other way that is not embedding 20 actions or even 5 actions. Is just my advice for people is that while you may think that it's a good idea now, and adding this kind of third-party dependency to your shortcut is not something that you really think about it very carefully, because this is a common problem, I guess, for programming in general, adding a third-party dependency to your code. And it's essentially the same thing in shortcuts at this point. Because you don't want to be in a situation where, you make a shortcut, you're really proud of it, and then in 6 months it's no longer working because the third-party service that you trusted for auto updates no longer exists. And so now you got to go back and change your shortcuts 6 months later.
You have introduced me to a world that I had no idea existed.
Oh, yeah.
That's so interesting to me. I had no idea people were doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Luna Display. If you have a Mac and an iPad, listen up, because this is something that is missing from your setup. It's something that could change the way that you interact with your devices every day. It's Luna Display. So Luna have given me a taste of the future. I'm so excited for when my Mac Mini arrives that I will be able to use my iPad with my Mac Mini all the time. Being able to use your iPad as a wireless display for your Mac is what the Luna Display is all about. You can connect over Wi-Fi or even USB, and boom, more screen real estate available to you whenever you want it. You just plug in a little piece of hardware into your Mac, a little dongle, straight from the apartment complex of Dongletown. It's right there for you. It's tiny. It's very small. It's very easy. And you'll be able to connect whenever you want. You can have multiple screens when you travel. You don't have to lug around an external monitor, because who would want to do that, right? Like, you're going to get on a train today with a 27-inch monitor under your arm. That doesn't make any sense. Use your iPad and your laptop. They're already there. You've got them whenever you need them. It's super easy to set up. The apps are really easy to install, and then you'll be able to get everything whenever you want it. I'm very excited about being able to be like, oh man, I need my Mac for this one thing, and I can just go in and just use it whenever I want. Super simple. I haven't got to come and turn everything on again. I love it. I'm very, very excited about this. I know that you're going to want one of these things. You got to go check it out right now. Go to lunadisplay.com. That's LUNADISPLAY.com. When you're there, use the promo code CONNECTED at checkout to get 10% off. That's lunadisplay.com, promo code CONNECTED at checkout. I've also been very excited for people that have been buying these things and have been sending me like screenshots and stuff of like interesting things that you could do. Like somebody sent me like a iOS video the other day. They were like on their Mac and they airdropped an image to themselves, right? Which is just like, oh, that's interesting, because airdrop will still work because it's on the Mac. It's like, it's super clever stuff. So this is really awesome. Our thanks to Luna Display for their support of this show and Relay FM.
I gotta tell you about the sponsor. I was so happy with the Luna unit that they sent me a few months ago. It was a mini DisplayPort unit. It works so well that I just bought like 2 days ago. I bought a USB-C version I'm waiting.
I did the
I am
exact
waiting
same
this
thing.
point
Did
for
the
my
exact
Mac
same
Mini.
thing.
You know what I want to do? I want to see if it's possible that I keep the Luna always plugged into the Mac Mini. I use macOS from my iPad when I need it, but then if I want a bigger screen, I will mirror the iPad running Luna to the ultrafine. I want to see what happens.
So the Mac Mini's sitting next to the monitor, but yet it's going through the iPad. All right, man, you do you. Like, I'm sure it's possible.
That is something that I want to try. But yes, go get a Luna display. It's excellent.
Talking about interesting ways to access things, Apple Music is coming to the Amazon Echo.
Okay. Are you happy? You're still using the Echo?
Well, I mean, I still have them. I don't listen to music on my Echo.
Okay.
This is interesting. I mean, I would love a little bit more information. It seems like we're going to have to wait. So, like, it's not completely clear right now. Launches on December 17th. It's not completely clear right now whether this is a skill, or you'll have the ability to set it as a default music service. Okay,
so I also wondered this publicly. And people, because it was public, people got in touch with me and said the Tidal, you know, the Jay-Z music service.
What is Tidal's thing? Isn't it like uncompressed? Isn't that their thing? They have a thing, right?
Yeah. Okay. The thing is lossless.
Lossless, that's it.
Audio. Yeah.
Okay.
They also launched a skill for the Echo, I think a couple of weeks ago. But it can apparently be used, once a skill is installed, it can be used as a default music service. So I think it works this way. Once you install the skill, it becomes an option in the device settings for music service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm just going to assume, because I don't think this could even remotely be possible, that it would be possible for me to play songs on my own on my Amazon Echo at the same time, right? Like, I wouldn't be able, like with a Sonos, like I wouldn't be able to use multi-room. That doesn't seem possible, right? That's not possible.
Probably not.
I severely doubt it, right? Because like, yeah, it just popped into my head, but no, I can't imagine it being possible. So
you would need a system like Spotify Connect, which is really good, but Apple doesn't have.
I will finally be able to cancel my Spotify account now. I kind of forgot that I had one. Because I never use music on my Echo anymore, right? That's why I had it, because Amazon Music's library service is not very good. Like it doesn't have a lot of what I'm looking for, but Spotify did. So when I was using the Echo for stuff, I would have Spotify and would use that. But now I have the HomePods, and I'm very happy with the HomePods. I just Apple Music. Apple Music also exists on Android. I saw a report, like a news story, that they're going to actually create a tablet, Android tablet version of Apple Music. Yeah. This is interesting, right? Like, it's weird. Like, it feels super weird, but I guess this is like Apple, the services company, right? Like, this is what they have to do if they want to be a services company.
It's a very different Apple in that we're not used to see Apple allow its software to run on hardware from other companies, and especially. And it still remains strange in that you see this other company write a blog post about it and say we worked with Apple, but Apple is silent, and it's like
I
this
found that
announcement
super
never
weird.
happened.
That was one of the reasons why I was wondering if it was just like a skill that Amazon built, right? And they're just like, haha, we're using the API. What you gonna do, right? But
No, I mean,
I can't imagine that Amazon would even attempt to do that without telling Apple first.
I don't think that Amazon just signed up for an Apple developer account and be like, let's build an Apple Music skill and write a blog post about
Wouldn't
it.
that be the greatest shade, though? Right? Because what could Apple do about it at that point? Right? It's like, haha, everyone knows about it now. Don't shut us down.
No, but because you need to log in with your Apple Music account, I think I don't know. Maybe it's possible to build a third-party skill. I don't know. But it's strange because we're gonna see this more and more, especially I think with the TV service. Now that we have Apple Music on Android and Apple Music on the Echo. Why not have Apple TV if it's going to be called, the service, Apple TV, the service, if it's going to be called Apple TV? That's, Jason Snell's theory that it's going to be called Apple TV. Why not have Apple TV pre-installed on, I don't know, WebOS televisions or Samsung televisions? I mean, why not? If this is a service, and by definition a service is something that needs to reach as many people as possible to provide the service, why not have it on multiple devices that are not just the Apple TV overpriced pack that you need to buy in an Apple store? I think we're gonna see this more and more for services, and it creates this weird contrast between the same company that makes the iPhone and iOS, this lockdown platform where everything is curated in theory, and Apple approves the kind of software that runs on these devices, and the same company that needs to make money off of services, and so they're making skills and integrations for Android and for Amazon and maybe for TVs going forward. It's a very interesting contrast, and I don't know how I feel about it, but it's going to be interesting to observe.
I think it's just an inevitable move. It is weird because if you look at like the previous iteration of this was iTunes, right? And iTunes and the iPod had a very symbiotic relationship, and the iPod got big when Apple put iTunes on Windows. Steve Jobs stood in front of a slide that said "Hell froze over." Just a great Steve Jobs keynote slide. This is a little bit different. Then it was about selling hardware in the iPod, and then selling music through iTunes was to feed the iPod. Now it feels like it's a little bit different. You can buy a HomePod, but they really want you to be an Apple Music subscriber. But there's still that relationship between the hardware and the service. The difference now is that the service is in the driver's seat. And so if you look at it that way, it makes sense for them to be on the Echo. I think there are a lot of Apple customers with Amazon Echoes, right? It's sort of like people who buy iPhones and have Apple Music, like they're going to spend money on voice assistants for their home. It makes sense. It's weird, but I see why they've done it. The same reason I think that Apple Music will continue to exist on Android. Why I think that they need a better web client for Apple Music. Why they need a better Mac client for Apple Music. 'Cause it's stuck inside iTunes, which is a horrible place to be. But I think we're going to see more and more of this as Apple shifts at least part of its business to services revenue. Stuff like this will become more and more obvious over time.
This one seems like a little weird. Right, like, are they going to put Apple Music on Google Home?
I mean, why not?
Right? Like, there's just something about, like, Apple Music on the Amazon Echo. Like, that whole thing seems peculiar to me. Like, it just... I know that Amazon is now trying to pitch their stuff as more of a music-focused thing, right? They have more, like, musically capable products now. I wonder is this part of a bigger thing which includes Apple TV going to Amazon Fire TV sticks, right? It's like a whole big thing, each company's coming to the table with a thing they want to achieve, right? Like Amazon want Apple Music, right? And then maybe Apple want Apple TV on Amazon's products, right? Like, you never know how these things actually go in the background. Like, I tend to believe that a lot of these moves are part of like much, much bigger things and it's like, this is just the stuff that we see publicly. It's all House of Cards back there, you know. It's interesting, right? Like you bring up the iTunes on Windows. Is that the only example of this, other than Apple Music, of like software that Apple makes for other platforms? I can't think of anything else.
I mean, there's iCloud sync and stuff on Windows. That's been there a long time. But that's about it. I mean, they had AppleWorks on the PC a long time ago. Does that count?
I don't think they make anything for Linux.
What you're saying is it's the year of Apple Music on Linux on the desktop.
Linux on the desktop.
Not Linux laptops, just Linux on the desktop. They won't make it for laptops. I wonder if this is going to be US only. How long is it going to be US only for? Like this is going to be one of those things where Apple, like every other company in the world, didn't know that they had to go through a different process for submitting to international Amazon stores. Mm-hmm. So like the skills in the UK have to be submitted separately to the skills in the US. Yep. This happens all the time, and I have no doubt that's going to be a problem.
It's interesting to consider the where sort of the power lies in this relationship. Apple needs Amazon more than Amazon needs to be on the HomePod. That's what I see here. Apple Music needs to be on the Echo because Apple wants to be on the Echo more than Amazon wants to have Amazon Music on the HomePod. And it's Apple can play, can be, the company that doesn't comment on this. They haven't announced anything on their own, through their own channels, and probably won't. I would be surprised to see a Phil Schiller tweet, or maybe an Eddie Q tweet. Maybe Eddie will tweet about it. He's the kind of guy who's gonna.
You don't think it might show up on the newsroom?
No. I don't know. It would be really strange to see an Amazon product mentioned on Apple.com. I don't know. But Apple needs to be on the Echo because more people have the Echo, and it's a chance to expose Apple Music to a big audience. And so I think it's very fascinating that Apple is in this situation at this point, and they will be when they want to launch their TV service, because they're gonna face some competition. And again, listeners are connected who don't usually follow this kind of news. You should go listen to the Upstream segment on Upgrade, which is the podcast by Mike and Jason, because they do an excellent job describing this this media landscape these days. I don't know. I feel like Apple needs to be on the Echo, but they don't want to comment on this integration. And we will see more and more of this stuff over the next few years. But it feels, I'm with you, it feels strange. There's something strange about it.
So I just went poking around Apple's website, and like on the music page, on features, they say Apple Music plays on all of your devices, and it has PC, Android, and Sonos listed there. So you would expect to see in a couple of weeks that will also say Amazon Echo products, right?
Okay. So, and will they say so you can ask Alexa to play your music?
Now you see, I'm assuming not, right? Like I feel like that might be a bridge too far. Like I don't want to mention that.
Will they speak the unspeakable name on Apple.com?
God, that would be so interesting.
I tell you what, not be named.
If they have anything like that, that's how you know Amazon are in the driving seat of this one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If the word Alexa is listed on any Apple.com page, like I would be surprised if it even made it to a support document.
I mean, there has to be a support document somewhere. They have support documents for Android, for Sonos, I think.
No one reads those but me.
So
it's fine.
Steven reads them. So, I don't know. We'll see. So, also weird, starting the week of December 17, is this going to be like a staged rollout of some kind? That just
it'll show up in
that's how it ends up, like Europe in like January 2024.
I think even the US,
so stage.
Amazon's done that before with new features. They sort of show up in the Helper app on iOS, not for everybody at the same time. So I think it'll be over a couple days. You'll get it or you won't, and then you'll have it later. I'm looking forward to trying this out. I only have one Amazon Echo left now that we have two HomePods and they've slowly overtaking the Echo. I was paying for the Amazon streaming music service deal that you could hook up to the Echo that was better than the free one, and I've canceled that. I'll put Apple Music on that Echo, and probably that Echo is going to get replaced by HomePod at some point next time I can get one less than Apple's ridiculous asking price. But I think this is a smart move on Apple's part, and I'm glad to see them do it. I'm glad to see them be able to shed the idea that everything they have to do is filter through hardware, that if they want their services to grow, they need to decouple it from actual objects they sell. And that's exciting. It's a change, but it's, I think, a positive one. Well, I think that does it for this week, gentlemen. All right. If you want to find links to stuff we talked about this week, you can head over to our website, relay.fm/connected/221. While you're there, you can send us an email with any feedback or follow-up. You can do that on Twitter as well. Mike is there as IMYKE. Mike is the host of a bunch of great shows here at relay.fm. You can go check some other fine programming out. You can find Federico on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci, and he is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net. You can find me there as ISMH, and I write 512pixels.net. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Away, Pingdom, and Luna Display. And until next week, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Super, one quick thing. I would like to add my congratulations to you, Stephen, on joining Mac Power Users. Federico said everything I would have wanted to say last week, but I'm very, very excited. Katie has been wonderful, and we're sorry to see her go, but I'm excited to see what you bring to that show as well. So cheerio.
Oh, thanks, man. Adios.